not a lot of people getting their 25-year gold watch from one company the way it
Yeah.
used to be a generation or two ago. And so you do have to be prepared to navigate that. All right, guys, welcome to another edition of Mentor Talk Season 2. I'm your host, Isaac Aqua, VP with Wentworth Institute of Science and Health. Here joined today by our new friend, Nicholas King from Vanta. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Thanks for spending time with us today, man. We've heard great things about you. So just want to go ahead and start. And just for the people who may not know anything about you or your company, tell us a little about you, your journey, and what you do.
Sure. I'm Nick King. I have been a little bit everywhere around the United States. Born in Illinois, but a military kid, kind of moved all over the place. Went to from that, uh, kind of went to college in Indiana and wanted to be a teacher. Found out very late in that journey that didn't really want to be a teacher. Wasn't really interested in doing that. Not the right time for all of y'all who are like looking into like what you want to do with your life. Make that switch way earlier than like year 4 in college. But did realize that like one of the things that I really liked doing was helping folks. Still loved like those aha moments and still like figuring out like what do we, what makes you, helping folks learn and actually just continue to like find solutions that work well for them. And that's kind of what led me to kind of where I'm at now in terms of like customer success, as a customer success manager at Vanta. Basically, working with a lot of cybersecurity for us at Vanta. Vanta overall is basically an automated security solution that does a lot of work around like security and compliance. Basically, helping folks to get all those, basically the alphabet soup of certifications that are out there, from like SOC 2 to ISOs to GDPR to like FedRAMPs. And that number always continues to grow, what appears to be like almost every day, especially as more folks are and more states are passing more things, especially around like data privacy and things like that. So Vanta saw that as something, as a way of like, well, a lot of this information could be collected with like read-only APIs. So basically took that information, grabbed it, and started the whole compliance process of just like, how can we streamline and automate a lot of that process, where like before, like if you're going through a SOC 2, for example, a SOC 2 could take, tens of thousands of dollars, working with an auditor, tireless hours, providing tons of screenshots from, the last 3 months, 6 months, a year. And we just wanted to streamline all that. So that's kind of where Vanta came into play and what we've been doing, what we're currently doing. And then my small role in that is just continuing to help and work with our customers achieve those goals. Like, what are our short-term goals? How are we trying to maintain those certifications? How are we working towards those? And mixing that with like a little bit of education along the way. Working, a lot of our customers are, smaller startups, and as they grow, Vanta wants to grow with them. So I work with, everything from 2 to 3 people companies where they have no idea what security and compliance is, all the way up to, I think my largest one in my neck of the woods is around like 500. We have a couple of folks that have higher on my team, or other CSMs that are more like up market. But you're getting a very similar to education. Everyone is at their own level when it comes to us, and just kind of helping them not only just get educated on the product itself, but like what are some of those security best practices long term.
Well, I'll tell you what, being involved in many different companies, anytime the word compliance comes up, it scares a lot of people. So if you guys are helping to simplify that process and make it easier to deal with, you guys are doing a really huge service for any company, especially along the lines of cybersecurity. So what are some challenges that you guys are experiencing in the market with the different companies you're working with?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it is just figuring out like what is the best security practice for your organization long term. And I'm sure you can talk to a lot of different like true cybersecurity experts that focus on the idea that the easiest path forward in a lot of ways is just educating folks along the way of like what actually is a concern, should you be concerned about moving into, because most entry points, and I'm probably going to get these statistics wrong, but some of the most common issues are usually it's people. Those are like the largest liabilities of what they're actually going to work towards, and like what are they going to be mindful of. So it's the education factor there in particular. So like things like, security awareness training videos or like phishing attempts, like those are the things that I've seen folks really get attached or basically like get really interested in, because like those are things that they've seen either at like huge enterprise level companies that they're trying to bring over, or just things that for them it's they just want to make sure that people are aware of like, hey, the bot, I just got a text from a random number that says the CEO wants 50 iPad money for 50 iPads via gift cards. Click this link and send it to them. People have even started, we're starting to talk about this a little bit more too, but like there's even, I forgot who this happened to, but like with before the call, we were talking about like science fiction and the world we live in.
Hmm.
People are starting to do like deep fake voices of like
Right.
the CEO and everything. I'm sure, I don't know if you've seen this too, it sounds like, but that stuff that's really interesting to me, just to kind of see like, it's not just going to be a phishing attempt or the
Hmm.
idea of like, the attempts of yesteryear where it's like, hey, this is an unidentified number or a weird email address, like things that are very easy to identify. Instead, it would be like, join this call in the next 5 minutes, and then it's like someone that you think has that
Hmm.
voice talking through it. And there's even, this hasn't happened yet to anybody, but like, there's even deep fake videos with like people are using it for entertainment right now, but very soon you could be in a similar situation where it's like instead of just an audio message, you're looking at audio and visual. So it's going to be even harder to kind of discern like what those pieces look like. So things like that is what I think is going to make cybersecurity even more important for folks
Hmm.
long term, or just general security best practices overall.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've seen a bunch of those videos, and I think initially you see something, you think, "Oh, that's really cool," and then it hits you like, "Wow, hold on, what's real? Like,
Yeah,
what
right.
should I be scared of?" And all those type of things. And it's good to know there are companies like yours that are out there getting ahead of that kind of stuff and seeing those trends. Because I think being mostly on the user side, I think most people like myself are just getting increasingly scared of everything around them. And, obviously we don't want to be isolating ourselves and kind of running away from everything. But at the same time, I think we need, your service to stay safe and know what to look out for and how can we just go about our daily lives. So, very valuable once again service you're doing. I want to pull back a little bit. By the
Sure.
way, my year was the second year. You mentioned fourth. I caught it the second. Went from bio pre med over to psychology and
Oh, cool.
made that connection. But it sounds to me, and I don't think if you mentioned it, sorry, but you had that focus of wanting to be, in teaching. And
Mhm.
now you're technology based, and you're still using those elements of teaching, but your field that you're in right now is very heavily technology based. When did you become interested in that? And, talk a little bit more about that journey of kind of figuring out that transition, and then how you became, primarily in the technology space.
So basically, my first job out of college was at a nonprofit called Challenger Center that did
Oh.
like STEM education. It was a mixture of like STEM education with education technology at the same time. Basically, Challenger Center still is. There are 43 different locations, or at that point in time when I was there, 43 different brick and mortar places throughout the United States, with 3 of those being international. And the basically students were brought in as like field trip level experiences for
Mhm.
2 hour experiences, where for the first half of the day, basically for about 2 hours, they would go on what is called, we would call like a mission to Mars, mission to the moon, so on and so forth. And you would do 1 hour experience being in like what is mission control, where you're like analyzing data, interacting with computers, basically guiding your counterparts in the spacecraft at the same time. And those folks in the spacecraft would think, something out of Star Trek, sliding doors, whole 9 yards, of them doing like real world experience that like an astronaut maybe not do that same level, but like what are those real level experiences? What are those like skills that we can learn? And then tagging all of that back to the educational standard, like in that national standard or in that local state. So that pitch aside of like going to visit a challenger center, which I highly recommend, is that what my role there was a little bit of everything. As a
Mhm.
smaller, you join smaller teams, smaller nonprofits, you're doing a little bit of everything. So I was very heavily involved with um, from everything from like curriculum development to actually taking that curriculum and porting it into like our software tools. Like what is that, you know how are we going to code that? How are we going to interact with that? How are kids going to interact with that? So that whole aspect combined with like the project management aspects of it as well. Like how do we get all these things rolled out to 43 different locations? How do we provide training to all those folks? So that was the first step. It basically was like slowly but surely it was like education, education and tech. Next position was purely technology, with that focused to my next role, basically still in the DC area, that focused around like still technology, still education along the way, but dealing primarily with like HR performance management
Hmm.
systems. And then just the last 2 years here has been with Vanta. So similar energy, still that tech industry, still helping folks, but more of that focus on like the cybersecurity aspects. So each step of the way for me has been kind of like that natural, in some ways, almost like a natural segue of
Hmm.
like started with ed tech, transitioned to tech, transitioned to like more full on, almost like adult learning, adult education, with that like ongoing support of the technology sector for me. So that's it. I know some in a lot of ways it's you kind of stumble into it. I guess for me, it's
Hmm.
what it became.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people have experienced that myself in my career journey. I had a plan and then I adjusted and I ended up. And when you look back, I'm like, wow, what a journey that is. I feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be. For the people out there, and especially the students out there who may be intimidated by getting into the tech field or cybersecurity, like I still think, sometimes you hear things when you're talking about STEM, whether it be biology, whether it be, technology, security, what it is. A lot of people hear that and go, oh, I don't know if I'm a tech person, or I don't know if I'm a science person or whatever. So what advice would you give out to someone who might be interested in getting into technology, or, doesn't know that they might be interested in it and could be missing out a huge opportunity like yourself?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of a couple of different things. I think if I remember the statistics correctly, it's like by fifth or sixth grade is when you start to have the ideas or inclinations that you're like not a math person, not a
Right,
tech
right, right.
person, right? So in some ways, it's just like encouraging younger folks at the beginning, and just like some of the stuff is a struggle. Some of the as you're going through it, but never going down the full path of like this is not for you,
Hmm.
right? And like let them kind of make that decision themselves. I kind of liken it to like sports at a young level. I'm sure I'll get like flack for this in some ways, but like the idea that like competition or like winning, while important, shouldn't be the end goal, at least in
Hmm.
my opinion, to like middle school, high school, because things are still developing. You have no idea what you're gonna like, what you're not gonna like. Like just can focus on like learning that sport, learning on that scale, and like just continue to like grow in that area. So like obviously starting young, working through it to see like what you actually enjoy doing, so you don't like shut anything off for yourself early on. In terms of like what are some of those other things? I think what I've personally found, especially for kind of stumbling into these different areas in like the tech sector, like, I never thought I'd be having consultant calls or anything like that around the
Hmm.
idea of like, hey, how do we build, what's the best way to build out a performance management system? Or what are some of these questions around like, what's the best security practice for, our cloud setup or our cloud provider? So like things like that, those types of questions, I definitely never thought I was going to get asked those. At all, right? Like I was supposed to be a history teacher, so like if we
Right.
want to talk about like World War II or something, that's what I thought my life was going to be. But what I've found to be a great resource, and I think a lot of young people are way better at this than me, is just like the focus on like the online learning opportunities that are out
Mhm.
there. So like Coursera has a ton of stuff. Google just launched a cybersecurity certificate. I personally went through like their program or project management one like last year. um, Poking around on a few of those, even if you're not going for like the full like official certificate at the end that you have to pay for, you can still go through those as just like general learning opportunities to see if that's something you like talking about and like want to dive deeper. For me, the interest has always been what are you curious about when you're going through the journey, and just like continue to poke at that. So it's I know some people are just like, find your passion.
Mhm.
I'm not one of those folks. It's always just like maybe my passion is just like what are you curious about today? And maybe that's the ADHD side of it all. But like for me, it's just jumping down like what, you asked me that question. I want to know what is the best way to set up a
Mm.
performance management system. So I'll start like investigating it, find a couple of answers, talk to some colleagues, and then bring that answer back to the customer to be like, hey, here's what I found. Let's have a conversation about it.
That's awesome, and I think that's great advice. And I think that a lot of people out there who are probably wondering or thinking that they have to have that plan can really relate to the idea of just being curious and being willing to take a chance and see where things go. Now I know recently you've joined an organization specifically around mentoring, and obviously here on Mentoring Talks, one of our focuses is really finding out from people like yourself who are out there who are working with different people, why that's important and the types of things and opportunities you have out there, maybe to help some other people or some great examples. So if you could talk a little bit about your journey as far as wanting to mentor people, and some things you like about it, and just in general, how you came to wanting to do that.
For me, it kind of comes back to just helping folks and like figuring out like what's the best step for them. So like for my, to be honest with you, like when I said when I told everyone, oh, I'm going to be a teacher, the end goal was I wanted to be a coach. I wanted to be like a football coach. That was the end goal. Like, I was not athletically gifted enough to like play anywhere big. So it's just like coaching is, like a lot of people are just like, I think this is what I love. I want to continue to go down it. So for me, it was coaching. I coached for my entire college career at like through 5th and 6th grade. So just like teaching fundamentals, middle school for a little bit there too, I believe, if I remember correctly. So for me, it started as coaching of just like, here's what we're trying to focus on. Here's where you're trying to go. So it's like the aspects of just trying to take someone who like comes in with that general curiosity of like, hey, how do I actually do this? And it's having a conversation with them of like, okay, so where would you want to go? Like,
Mhm.
like, and kind of putting it and like challenging them to kind of think through like what they want to do. Because for me, that has always been where I've seen my own greatest growth and where I've, think about mentors in my past. It's never been like, you need to hit X, then Y, then Z to be successful. It's been, the ones who have been the best have been the ones who have been those like subtle pokes of like, well, what do you like about that? What do
Mm.
you, and like diving a little bit deeper into it. I'm sure you can relate, like, from a psychology background,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
where are people like, what motivates them? Right. So those aspects definitely really help me and what I really enjoy focusing on, of like a holistic experience of, working with that person to like see where they want to go and like help achieve like their life goals rather than it just being, oh, you want to go to like, the organization I'm working with, it's helping to mentor folks, going through like the college application experience for the
Mhm.
first time. So, you know, that process, I mean, that process alone, uh, is pretty crazy. Like, my mom went to college after the Navy, so she didn't have a huge insight into that world. My dad went to Michigan State, so like the local state school down the way, mostly because like they offered a scholarship and said, "Hey, do you want to come to college? Because you seem to be pretty smart." So I didn't have a lot of insight myself into that college admission process. So learning from the experts that are there on the organization and like helping guide folks through that process alone, especially like if you're a first generation student, first generation college student, or you just, even if you have had people going through that process before, it's a great, fun, complicated process of just trying to figure out like what can we actually do to actually get you into the school of your choice, what's actually important. Everyone always sees like Ivy League schools and all these things, but like, are those actually the best schools for you? Like, don't be afraid to like go to these other places and like actually have that conversation with your mentees of just being like, you don't chase the sticker shock of like going to this what you think is this amazing place when once you get out of college or once you get out of that experience, it's, I think you'll look back on it with, hopefully with like great memories that you fit in, but also like the outside world is not going to immediately say, oh, you went to XYZ school,
Mhm.
here's a new opportunity for you, or here's the job. Like after that first job, that, I don't know if this has been your experience, but that it kind of doesn't come up in conversation a lot after a while.
Right, right. So Nick, as we get ready to wrap up, it's been unbelievable hearing your journey and hearing about how you're getting in the community and your passion for coaching and teaching and mentoring and everything like that, and how that's really giving you a lot of a lot of positivity, and enjoyment, not just for the people you're working with, but yourself as well. Wanted to give you a chance here at the end. Is there any other advice or any other things you'd like to say to people out there who are either trying to figure out their careers or curious about getting mentoring, or even cybersecurity, anything at all that could
I
help?
was gonna say floor is mine, I guess. No, so yeah, I think the two things that I focus on is definitely kind of like the curiosity
Mhm.
aspects of it. So just like figuring out ways of like what interests you in that moment and kind of follow it or tug on that string to see if it becomes something bigger. I mean, for me, it was education to technology to HR to someone reaching out and saying like, hey, have you ever thought about going down a security and compliance path? And it was not the top of my list. It was definitely something I never thought I'd be interested in. But then you just start to go down that and you're just like, oh, that's cool, or this is neat. And like you'll always find aspects of it that are going to continue to interest you. And that's, I think, how you continue to grow your career, is just like finding different stepping stones, because you'll always learn from every experience along the way, good, bad, I guess, sorry, good and bad going through
Mhm.
that. And the same thing is true with mentoring and like uh, curiosity aspects, but also just like take a chance. Like there's people are always looking for help. They're always looking for someone to talk to, whether that be like an official mentoring capability from like, the organization I got connected with from a random friend from college who was just like looking for mentors to get to connected here. So it's kind of amazing where you'll see those like random connections along the way that kind of fit into like the tapestry of your career or your life. So for me, it's um, kind of two things of like just kind of leave no stone unturned of like what you're interested in, and then just be curious along the way so that you're continuing to like set yourself up for success of like what actually interests you. And if you're doing that, you're never really going to have a horribly dull life, at least in my opinion, going through all this.
Awesome, man. And any contact information where people can reach out to you?
Sure. This is gonna sound silly. I don't have social media,
Oh,
so
okay.
so not a lot of stuff to plug there. But like if folks are curious about like learning more or just want to reach out or anything, I mean, you can always just find me on like LinkedIn or shoot me an email or something like that. But I mean, I'm not too hard to find in terms of like things in Austin, Texas. Common name, but you'll find me soon enough.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, well, as we talked about before the call, sometimes you might want to stay off the grid.
Yeah, I want to be very clear that what we were talking about there, I haven't fully embraced that. It was just something where I just haven't gone down that path too much recently.
Yeah. All right, Nick. Well, thanks so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Look forward to speaking with you in the future. And good luck with Vanta and everything else you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me today. Thanks for the conversation. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right. Not a lot of people getting their 25-year gold watch from one company the way it
Yeah.
used to be a generation or two ago. And so you do have to be prepared to navigate that